Rabbi Sai. So it's Parshas Va'era. In Parshas Va'era, we have 7 of the 10 Makkahs. The list is the Makkah of Borod, and that's what I want to discuss. The pasuk says it would be if you have a chumash accessible, it would be helpful, Mustama. The pasuk says, "Vayoyme Hashem el Moshe hashkein baboiker v'yisyatzev lifnei paro." Yeah, wake up early in the morning and station yourself in front of Paro. V'amarta elov koy oma Hashem Elokei ha'ivrim shalach es ami v'ya'avduni ki bapam hazois ani sholech es kol magei foisai el libcho uba'avodecho uba'amecho ba'avur teida ki ein kamoini b'chol ha'oretz ki ato v'goyme. It discusses the previous market. V'ulam ba'avur zois ha'emadeticha ba'avur haroischa es koichi uleman saper shmi b'chol ha'oretz. Oidcha mistoilel ba'ami levilti shalcha hineni mamtir ko'es mochor borod koved ma'oid asher loy hoyo kamoyu b'mitzrayim v'goyme va'ato shlach ha'ez. Es miknecha ha'ez means gather all your cattle. Ha'ez es miknecha ves kol asher lecha basode kol ha'adam v'habehema. The people and the behemoths gather them. Asher yimotze kol ha'adam v'habehema asher yimotze basode v'lo yosef haboisa. Whoever will be outdoors and will not enter the homes, v'yered aleihem v'yorad aleihem haborod v'mesu. So the hail will hail down on them and they will die. Hayore is Dvar Hashem, the pasuk says, Heinis, v'goymer, those that feared the word of Hashem actually chased their animals into the batim, etc. Vasher lo yishos liboy, those that didn't pay attention, they actually were afflicted by this plague. So the Orach Chaim HaKodesh, in the Dibur HaMaskil, Va'ato Shlach Ho'ez, he writes like this: V'im toimar, im kein ma mako zoi oisa. I mean, you'll ask, what is this makkah about? What is this makkah for? In other words, he's telling them to bring everything into the homes. So if they'll bring everything into the homes, they won't be hurt. So he says, Harei sholcha lefanecha. Your answer is right in front of you, he says. Masha hikdim Hashem loy maloi. This that Hashem said in the earlier psukim of this hasra, she'ein tachlis hakavone b'makois lohora. That the Rebbeinu Shalom is not out over here to do bad to them. Elo ba'avur har oisoi koichoi hagodol v'yodei hachazoka. This makkah is coming only for the purpose of showing his power and his strong hand, because it said before, "Ba'avur haroischa es koichi uleman saper shmi b'chol haaretz." Okay, and therefore he let him know sheyesoif adam ubehema min hasoda, that he should gather all the people and the behemoths from the soda. And then he is val kol panim taseh hamakeh roishem b'hashchosas mashu mechubel haaretz, that the produce will be destroyed. Shekain ksiv ves kol eisev hasoda hiko haborod ves kol eitz hasoda shiber. This is the end of the quote from the Orach Chaim. In other words, his question was that if this makkah is coming as an oynish, so how come together with a warning, together with Asher, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving him an eitzah how to avoid it? Therefore, he says that it's mefurish in the Hakdama to this makkah that this is ba'avur zoishem adaticha ba'avur har oischa es koichi uleman saper shmi b'chol haaretz, and this will actually happen even if they won't die through this makkah. And therefore, we can say l'chayre that this makkah wasn't an oynish; it was just a makkah as a display of Hakadosh Baruch Hu's gvura, and therefore he gave them an eitzah how not to get hurt, that they should enter the homes. Okay, but this is shver because, in Parshas Lech Lecha, By the Bris Ben Abasorim, it says, V'games hagoy asher ya'avoidu don anoichi, that the people that they will serve, I will judge. And Rashi says, Be'eser makis. So that means, l'chare, that all the 10 makis were a judgment, an einish, and not just a display of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's strength. And as we say in the Haggadah, Shoytzionu mi Mitzrayim v'osa bohem shvatim, meaning he brought judgment on them. In Masechtes Idiyus and Perek Beis, it says Mishpat HaMitzrayim was Yud Beis Chodesh, and that's the time of the 10 Makis, all the 10. On the other hand, in all the Makis, there was also a dimension of showing HaKadosh Baruch Hu's strength. As it says in the beginning of this week's Parsha, V'ani akshe esleiv paroi, v'hir beisi es oisoisai v'es moifsai be'eretz Mitzrayim. So, oisoisai and moifsai is signs and wonders. That's a display of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's greatness. And as it says 2 psukim later, V'yodu Mitzrayim ki ani Hashem, b'netoisi es yodi al Mitzrayim. So, as I stretch out my hand over Mitzrayim, they will know me. So the Makis have a dimension of showing HaKadosh Baruch Hu's strength. So that's why the Or HaChaim adds that this Makah. So in other words, so in all the Makis, there were two dimensions. There was a dimension of showing HaKadosh Baruch Hu's strength, and there was a dimension of Einish. As we see, Don Anoichi, as a Makis, is a Mishpat. So what's different about this Makah? So is this Makah just to display a display of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's strength? That can be, because we refer to all the Makahs as a Mishpat. So I think that's why the Or HaChaim is the Al Kolponim, the Makah will be Oiser Roshim b'hashchosas Masha mechubel karka, that it will do damage. It will do damage, and that is the Einish. But even that, according to the Or HaChaim, in the Makas Borod, these two dimensions of the display of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's strength and the Einish for the Mitzrayim were mischalek to two. In other words, the Einish was only with destroying the Yevul Hasodeh, the Eitzim and the Esev, whereas the people and the animals were not included in the Einish, and that was just a display of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's strength, and therefore he told them how to avoid it by going into the homes. But Bemis, we may ask, if it's true that the Adam and the Behema were not part of the Einish, so why was it dependent on going into the houses? Why did they have to save themselves by going into the houses? L'chorah HaKadosh Baruch Hu could make that the borot should not fall on the behemoths and on the people, and should only fall on the Esev HaSodeh. Is that beyond HaKadosh Baruch Hu's ability? I mean, he had to tell them to go into the homes. So that's the question I'm asking on the Or HaChaim. If the Adam and the Behema were not included in the Makah, were not included in the Einish, why was their Hatzalah dependent on going into the homes? You know, in the Brisker Rov, we see a totally different approach. In the Chidushei Moran Riz HaLevi, he writes like this: Vayomer Hashem el Moshe nete'es yodcha al hashamayim. Yeah. V'yehi borod b'chol eretz Mitzrayim al ha'odam v'al ha'behema v'al kol esev ha'sodeh. So he says, Nire miloshin ha'kosuv ki ha'borod lo yorad rak b'mokim she'yeh shem odam oy behema oy esev ha'sodeh. In other words, that the borod didn't just fall. The borod targeted Adam, Behema, and Esav HaSodeh. Where there was no Adam, and no Behema, and no Esav HaSodeh, the borod didn't fall b'chlal. Because the Pasuk says, Vayihi borod b'chol eretz Mitzrayim al ha'odam, v'al ha'behema, v'al kol Esav HaSodeh. So he says, Ner milosh nakasav ki ha'borod lo yorad rak b'mokim she'yeh shem Adam, oy Behema, oy Esav HaSodeh. V'ilavochi, loma pirta nakasav. Why do we have to specify? Halei pshita, the ksheborod yored. Yored al kol masha yimtza. It's poshut that when the borod comes down, it'll come down on everything. V'chein masha nema. Okay, so now he adds a dramatic hoisafen. V'chein masha nema l'maylo. This that it said earlier. Va'ato shlach ho'ez es miknecho. This that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to gather and bring the mikneh and the people into the homes. Yesh loymar dekach hoisa hanavu. The im yiyu babayis loy yered aleim haborod v'lo yazikim. V'rak al oisa mashe imotzu basode v'lo ye'ersu haboisa aleim yered habotor umesu v'lo mishum da habayis hoyo shmire le'inyan haborod. Rak de mi'ikara lo yorad aleim haborod klal. Ad kan l'sheni. So he says, being in the house wasn't a protection, a physical protection from the borod. It was that the makeh was only on the odom and the behema ashimotz basada. If they're in the bias, the makeh didn't target them, because this makeh was a targeted makeh. Yeah, they say that according to the Brisker Rov, so if it was a house with mechitzas, with doifen akuma ken zayin, and with a good asik and a good achis, it could be that it also the borod didn't enter, even though physically it could have entered, but the gzeira was not on those that are babayis. In any case, so we see from the Brisker Rov that the fact that it hit the people and the behemoths that were outside the homes wasn't because it fell and memela they were there. It was because they were being targeted by the borod. They were being targeted by the borod. So it's clear that the Odom and the Behema were Bechlal the Makeh and the Oynish, and not like the Or HaChaim says. The Or HaChaim said that the Makeh was really only for the Esev Hasoda and for the Eitzim. And the people were therefore told to go home in order that they shouldn't be affected. The Or HaChaim is understanding that if they would be outside, they would be affected by Derech Mamela. But the Brisker Rov is saying there was no Derech Mamela. The Makeh targeted whatever it targeted, and the going into the houses was not a physical protection, but it was part of where the part of the halachas of the Makeh, that the Makeh will only hit them when they're outside and not when they're inside. So they were included in the Makeh. But according to the Brisker Rov, the kasha of the Or HaChaim in the first place is not shver. The Or HaChaim is ma makah zu oisa. What is this makah for? If he's telling them how to avoid it. Because the Or HaChaim that asked this question, he understood that the makeh was v'hi haborod b'chol eretz Mitzrayim, that the borod will be everywhere, and the going into the homes is a way to avoid the makeh. So he's asking, I mean, how could you threaten and warn that you're giving a makeh and at the same time tell the people how to avoid it? And therefore he says that al korchoch, the people were not bechlal their makeh. However, according to the Brisker Rov, that the going into the homes wasn't a eitzah to avoid the makeh, but that was milichatchila, that the makeh was only on people that are outside, on behemoths that are outside, not on behemoths that are inside. So really, this is not circumventing the makeh. The going into the houses is putting yourself in a place where the makeh doesn't go. Lechatchila, it's not a way to avoid the makeh, but that is mi'ikir the makeh, that it only hits outdoors and not indoors. But it's true that according to the Brisker Rov, that was the way the makeh came, mi'ikara, that it only included people and behemoths that were outdoors. And when it says va'ata ho'ez es miknecha, it's not an eitzah how to avoid the makeh, but rather it's defining the parameters of the makeh. But the Iker Zachavada needs to be understood. In other words, if it wasn't oynish on the people and the behemoths, so why was this makeh done in a way that it'll only hit people and behemoths that are outdoors and not people and behemoths that are indoors? So really, this conversation that's happening between the Brisker Rov and the Or HaChaim are really Midrash Chazal, as I will show you. In the Shmois Rabbah, Parsha Yud Beis, it says like this: Va'ato ho'ez es miknecha. which means now you shall gather your cattle. So the Medrash says, Boyu re'ei rachamov shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. See the mercy of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Afilu b'shas ka'asoi. Even when he's angry, richem al Rishon, he has mercy on the Rishon, v'al behemtom, and on the behemoths. Lefi, shemakas borod lo yhoyom mishalchai aleihem. He didn't send the makas borod on them. Elo al yevul ha'oretz. The makas borod he only sent on the yevul ha'oretz and not on the people on the behemoths, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu afilu b'shas ka'asoi, he was merachem on the Rishoim, and he didn't send the makkah to the people on the behemoths. V'hoyom mazhira. Sheyishmeru atzmam v'ez behemtom k'dei shelo yilku beborod. So this is mafurish like the Orach Chaim, that the Adam and the Behemoth were not b'chlal the makkah, as the Medrash says, lo hoyo mishalchei aleim. So al korchach we have to say that the borod fell everywhere, and the Mela HaKadosh Baruch Hu told the people to bring themselves and their behemoths into the homes in order that they shouldn't be hit b'derech memela. Okay. So, in other words, it would have hit them because even though they weren't b'chlal the einish, if they would be outdoors, they would be hit. Okay. Now, the Medrash weiter over there says, "Vayoyma Hashem al Moshe netei yodcha al hashamayim v'goymer. Lama hevi aleim borod." Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu bring borod on the Mitzrayim? Lefi shesamu Yisrael noitei kromim. They made the Yidden plant vineyards. V'ginois, upardesim, v'ilonis. They made the Yidden work in the fields. Lefichach hevi aleim borod v'shiber es hakoil. Therefore, he brought on them borod and he broke it all. In other words, so the borod was an einish to destroy the produce because they made the Yidden work in the fields. So it's again beforish that the makkah was a makkah on the Yevul Ha'aretz that they acquired through enslaving the Jews. And we must say that even though the Rebbeinu Shalom Avada could have made that the borod should not fall on the Adam and Behema even if they're outdoors, but Loi Ovid Kutshe Berichu Nisel Magna, HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't do a nace for no reason. He'd rather have them go into the houses and not be hit by the borod. Or we can say that they weren't, even though they weren't worthy of an einish at this point, and therefore the borod didn't target them, but maybe they weren't roi for a nace, that the borod should avoid them. And therefore, the way to protect themselves was to go into the homes. On Kopanim, that's what comes out according to these midrashim. But there's another midrash over there that says like this: Al ha'odam va'al ha'behema keivan she'roa HaKadosh Baruch Hu shelo yishamu lidvarov ma she'omar lahem ha'ez. Since HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw that they didn't listen to what he told them to bring their behemoths into the homes and bring themselves into the homes, Omar HaKadosh Baruch Hu kedai sheyavoy haborod al hakoil. At this point, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, okay, so it's kedai that the borod should go down on all of them and the borod should destroy them. So it says over here that even though in the first place the Adam and the Behema were not included in the Makkah was only targeting the Yevul Ha'aretz. But since they didn't listen to the Dvar Hashem, it was Neschadish that the people and the Behemoths should be included in the Einish. But l'chayre, we need to understand where this message is coming from, because from the beginning, it was so that only by entering the homes they could be saved. That's why it said, Ho'ezes miknecha. Meaning, l'chayre, that, as we saw, that even though they were not included in the Einish, but if they would be outdoors, the hail would fall on them too. No. And the same thing remained true until the end. Those that went in were not hit. Those that were outside were hit. So where does the Midrash see that there was a change? That originally the Makkah was only for the Yevul Ha'aretz. But when HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw that they didn't enter the homes, he says, Kedai, the Makkah should hit them. What do you mean? He said this when he saw that they didn't enter the homes? I mean, he said this in the first place. It said right away in the beginning, Va'ata shlach ha'ez es miknecha. So l'chayre it's a pliya atzuma. Okay, now if you look in Pasuk Yud Ches, it says Hineni mamtir ka'es mochor borod kaved ma'od. Rashi says ka'es mochor, like this time tomorrow. Zok tehelig Rashi, ka'es hazois lemochor, sorat loy srita bekoisel. Moshe Rabbeinu made a line on the wall. Loima. Tomorrow, when the sun will reach this line, that's when the motor will come down. In other words, ka'es mochar means at this exact moment, tomorrow. Meaning because before, by the makas dever l'moshel, it only says mochar. It says in Pasuk Hey, Vayosem Hashem moyed leimor mochar yaseh Hashem adover hazeh ba'aretz. But over here it says ka'es mochar, meaning that there was an exact time in the tomorrow. But l'chayre l'fizeh, we need to understand, why does it say, Va'ato shlach ha'ez es miknecha? Now, send and gather your cattle into the homes. Why now? There's still 24 hours until the borod will come down. So why should they bring it in now? So the Orach Chaim in the Hemshech HaDvarim, he asks this, V'nishar lonu lahaskil b'tevas va'ato. We need to understand what's the idea of va'ato. Ma yechaven bo Elokeinu elyon. Im loy ma kipshota ba'oisa eis. If he really means now you should gather the behemoths, lama yitzav ha'kel al zeh. Why should Hashem tell them that? Kiven she'ein ha'borod yored ad l'mocher ka'esahi. Since the borod is not coming until tomorrow at this time, why should they do it now? V'ulai Kishiur zeh l'shloyach ad lemokim she'odam u'behemoth shama v'loshu v'leyosav abaysa. So the Orach Chaim says maybe there were places that were that far from where they had to gather the behemoths that to send for them and bring them home would take 24 hours. So Memela, he says, V'ulai kishiur zeh l'shloyach ad lemokim she'odam u'behemoth shama v'loshu v'leyosav abaysa. So he's really saying that the va'ata wasn't afka va'ata. People that had their behemoths closed could do it at night, not now. It's just that this was the shear that everybody could actually bring their behemoths home. But it's kind of schwer because, I mean, why would he have to say va'ata? I mean, everybody could figure out how much time he needs in order to have the behemoths home before the makkah comes. There's another shtickle in the Orach Chaim where he says, Yesh lishoel, Dvar Hashem shlach ha'ez la'eze mokem noite. This that he says, shlach ha'ez, and give it tzivui that they should gather the behemoths. Imla hayore es Dvar Hashem. Who is this addressing? The Yore es Dvar Hashem. As soon as he'll hear that tomorrow Borod is coming, he'll do so. So it must be that this was for those that were not Yoriyas Vashem, that nevertheless they should do it. This is what he says. But I say that really it's Chotim Eturetzes B'chavetza. That one question that the Orach Chaim asked is answered by the other question. In other words, it's Taka Poshet that the Yoriyas Vashem would gather his behemoths and his and his avodim and his behemoths and himself into the homes, even without it tzivui. In other words, but and maybe even somebody that's not on the madrega of Yoreh Dvar Hashem, since they already experienced so many makkahs, he would definitely want to protect himself from the makkah. But they would only bring the behemoths and the avodim into the house before noon tomorrow. But what Moshe Rabbeinu is saying in the name of the Rebbeinu Shalom is Va'ato shlach ha'ez es miknecha. In other words, the zman of the makkah is tomorrow at this time, but the time for gathering the people and the behemoths into the homes is now. Okay, now I say that it says Va'ato shlach ha'ez es miknecha v'eskol shlecho basoda ha'odam v'behema asher yimotzei basoda. So I say the Va'ata is going on the whole pasuk. In other words, now send and gather your behemoths into the homes. Those that will not be in the homes, those that will be in the field and will not be gathered into the homes, the borod will fall on them and they will die. Now, I say that means those that will not be in their homes from now. In other words, the Makkah is going to be tomorrow. But the T'nai was that you have to come home now. You have to bring everybody home now. And if they're not brought home now, so the pshat is that's the Asher Basada. The Asher Basada doesn't mean they'll be tomorrow in the Sada. It means that they'll be in the Sada now. V'lo Yosef. So then they'll be hit by the Baruch. And Memela, that's what it says in the next pasuk. Hayore is v'Hashem avdei paroi heinis es avodav es miknei elabatim. He chased his avodim and his mikneh into the batim. In other words, there was still a mess less. There was still 24 hours to the Makkah. So, but somebody that was Yoreh Hashem and he listened to the tzivui of Va'ato shlach hoizes miknecho va'ato, so he did it immediately, and therefore he was heinous as mikneu. So the Orach Chaim is right that even without Yiras Hashem, they would bring the behemoths into the house before the hail comes, but that would be no reason to do it now. Only the Yoreh Dvar Hashem was heinous as avodov as mikneu el abot. Okay, now in the Medrash, we saw that in the beginning the Makkah was really only supposed to affect the produce. As the Midrash says, that because they made the Yidden noite kromim v'ginois upardesim v'ilonois hevi aleim borod v'shibras hakod. Now, since the Adam and the Behemoth were not included in the Oynish of this Makkah, it's just that they would be collateral damage, yeah. So it was enough for them to go into the houses in order for the houses to physically protect them. But since nevertheless they were, in other words, since they were Rishon, and it was only afilu b'shas kasa richem al Rishon val behemtom, and he didn't include them in the Makkah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was moisif at night. Va'ato shlach hoiz es miknecha, in order that only the Yirei Hashem should be saved. Okay. So in other words, the Makkah was really targeting the produce. But the people would be killed as collateral damage. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells them to go into the houses in order to protect themselves. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want to just protect them for nothing. Therefore, he says, "Va'ato shlach hoiz es miknecho," that those that will be Yoreh Dvar Hashem, they will be saved from being collateral damage. And those are who? Those are the people that are va'ato shlach hoiz es miknecho. Those are the people that will do it now. That will do it now. But now the Medrash says, the next Medrash says that since they didn't listen, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu included them in the Iker Makkah. And Memela, the Batim will no longer help B'derech HaTeva. And Memela, whoever wasn't Mekayim Dvar Hashem, and he wasn't Oisev es Mikneu ves Avodov, B'shas Hasro va'ato, so even if he brought them into the homes before the hail came down, the hail came into the house. Only the Yoreh Dvar Hashem was protected. And the emes, that's the mashmos of the psukim, because in the beginning by the Hasra, the Adam and the Behemoth are not mentioned at all. They're only mentioned in context of the being saved. It doesn't say Bechlal Adam and Behemoth as a target of the Borod. It just says about bringing the Adam and the Behemoth in. But when the Makkah actually comes, it says, "Vayoyma Hashem el Moshe neteyas yodcha al hashamayim v'yihi borod b'chol eretz Mitzrayim al ha'adam v'al ha'behemoth," which is exactly what the Medrash says, that if they weren't mekayim the tzivui of va'ata hoi shlach es miknecha, the Makkah included the people and the behemoths also, and that's why over here they're mentioned in the Iker Makkah. Now, in the beginning, it says, "Ki bapam azois ani sholech es kol magei foisai el lipcho u'ba'avodecha u'va'amecha ba'avur teida." So what's es kol magei foisai mean? What's happening now is the borod Why does it say that now I'm sending Kol Magei Foisai? Sure, Rashi says, Lomadnu mikan, shemakis b'choros, shkula keneged kol hamakis. We know from here that makis b'choros is equivalent to all the other makis. So the Re'aim writes about this, Lo yodati man tchar shmei shel makas b'choros kan. I mean, who's talking about makas b'choros? We're talking about the makas borod. How does, with the Torah describes, says in the context of makas borod, kol magei foisai, and Rashi says, Lamadnu mikan shemakas b'choros, shkula keneged kol ha-makis. The lama lo yefarish es kol magei foisai, ba'ada borod atzmo shekosaboi. He says, why doesn't Rashi say that the Torah is saying that borod was as bad as all the makis? It says kol magei foisai over here. And then he says, Aval omru mishem Rabbeinu Tami Orleans, shahagirse hi makas bakuros, bepasach habeis ubeshurik avov. And what's bikuros? The makas haborod. The makas borod is called makas bikuros. And why is that? V'nikreis kach al shem sheloi hoisa amaka azois rak bedvorim ha'avivim. It was only in the things that come out early, that grow early. Kediksiv. And that's a lashon of bikurim. Kediksiv. Va'apishto v'haso'ora nukoso. Ki haso'ora oviv. V'achita v'akusemes loiniku. Ki afilo iseino. Because they come out late. So Rashi is calling over here the makas borod, makas bakuros. The makkah that hit only the things that grow early. Now, the Re'aim asked on the Pashut reading of Rashi that it's makas bechoros. Why does he not say kol magei foisai is makas borod? And therefore he says that Rashi means makas borod. He's just calling it makas bakuros. But the emes is in this pasuk it says ki bapam hazeh ani sholech kol magei foisai el lipcho uba'avodecha uba'amecha. Now, according to Chazal in the Midrash, the makkah in the beginning was not meant to be ba'avodov uba'amoy, only in the produce. And as we saw the mashmois of the psukim, so that's why Rashi refrained from learning that kol magei foisai means makas borod. And he explains that it's makas bechoros, because it can't be that this is talking about the makas borod, because the makas borod was not meant to be becho uba'avodecha uba'amecha. How Rashi brought the makas bechoros into here, you'll have to see. The Gur Aryeh has a whole explanation on how makas bechoros comes into this pasuk. Now, I just want to add that, in Kadmonim, it says that the 10 makas parallel the Asora Mamoris, Shebohen Nivra Ha'olam. The Maharal in the Sefer Gvuras Hashem, Perek Nun Zayin, explains at length how all the makas from the beginning to the end parallel the Ma'amoros from the end to the beginning. In other words, makas bechoros parallels Anoichi, and so on and so forth. And what's the idea? The idea l'chora is that the idea of the zeh keneged zeh, that really ba'asora mamoris nivra olam, but it's concealed. And these makas revealed the bedvar Hashem shamayim nasu. In other words, when we saw HaKadosh Baruch Hu's ability to play around with nature, yes, so that uncovered the Asora Ma'amoros. That revealed the Asora Ma'amoros Shebehen Nivra Olam. So if you look over there in the Maral, it comes out that the Makas Borod parallels the Maimer of Yehi Rakia B'Soich HaMayim. V'hi Mavdil B'Mayim L'Mayim. And as he writes over there, U'B'Maimer Hazen Eschadish Poyal Noisaf B'Rakia, U'Bo Mimenu HaBorod Shaloi Kederech Teva U'Menhoga Shalom. So this is a new happening in the Rakia, and the Borod came, which is Shaloi Kederech Teva U'Menhoga Shalom. Shezehu Shinui B'Mamar Yehi Rakia B'Soich HaMayim. This is a shinui in the Maimer of Yehi Rakia B'Soich HaMayim, Ki Min HaRakia Bo HaBorod. Ad Kal L'Shoinei of the Maral. I just want to add, on the pasuk Yehi Rakia in Parshas Bereshis, Rashi says Yichozei Korakia. The Rakia Yehi doesn't mean it should be, but that it should become strong. Sha'af al pi shenivru shamayim b'yoyim harishon adayin lachim hoyu. even though Shamayim was already created, Bereshis bara Elokim es Shamayim was b'yom harishon, but adayin lachim hayu, it was still soft, it was still moist. V'karshu b'sheni, they became hard on the second day. Migaras HaKadosh Baruch Hu, from the gara is a lashon of yelling of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but Amra Yehirakia, when he says Yehirakia. So that's what made the Shamayim strong. That's the Yehirakia. Yeah, it became hard. V'zeu shekosav amudei Shamayim yiroifofu. The pasuk in Eov, amudei Shamayim yiroifofu. Kol Yom Rishon, that was on the Yom Rishon. Ubasheni yitmuhu migarasoi. Ka'adam shemishtoimeim va'oimed migaras hamayim. Although this is Rashi and Parshas Bereshis. So you see that the Maimer of Yehirakia is shaykh to the Indian of Yiras Shamayim, because it says the Shamayim was soft and it became hard. Migaras HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Migaras HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's why we talk about Yiras Shamayim. This is the Yira that the Shamayim had, and they became Shamayim. And that's the Yira that's expected of us. So the Maimer of Yehirakia is shaykh to Yiras Shamayim. And that's why in this Makkah, which parallels the Maimer of Yehirakia, we find the emphasis on Hayore es Dvar Hashem, Heinis es Avodov es Mikneu al Abatim, because this is shaykh to that Maimer where that brought about Yiras Shamayim. That the Maimer of Yehirakia is the Maimer that brought about Yiras Shamayim. You know, it says also in Parshas Bereshis, Vayikra Elokim l'Rakia Shamayim. Rashi says, Eish Umayim she'irvon zeh bazeh. Shamayim stands for Eish Umayim she'irvon zeh bazeh v'asa mehem Shamayim. Now, in the Maimer of Yehirakia, there was the division was created between the Mayim ha'elyonim and the Mayim ha'tachtonim. Now, the Mayim ha'tachtonim, the waters that we have, can't coexist with Eish, with fire. But by the Makas Borod, it says, Vayihi Borod, the Eish mislakachas betoich haborod. Rashi says, Neis betoich neis. Nasu ha'eish v'haborod mu'urovin. V'haborod mayimhu. V'lasois ritzoin koinom asu shalom beineim. So you see that in spite of the fact that in general, only the Mayim Elyonim, we say about them, Oiseh Shalom Bim Roimov. But in this Makkah, even in the Mayim Tachtoinim, there was that Shalom, as there is in the Mayim Elyonim. So it was revealed down here, the B'dvar Hashem Shamayim Nasu. And Memela, that brought about the Yorei es Dvar Hashem, Heinis es Avodov, Ves Miknei Ol Abatim. Be'emes hazeh is mefurish in the Medrash Shir Hashirim Rabbah, Peri Gimel Yud Aleph. It says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Ksiv, Oiseh Shalom Bim Roimov, Harakia Shel Mayim, V'akoichavim Shel Eish, Ve'ein Mazikin Zelazeh. So up there, it's Oiseh Shalom Bim Roimov. Av b'makois paroi osa HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shalom. Shenemar Vayihi Borod Ve'eish Mislakachas B'soich HaBorod. That's the Medrash. So this revelation of the B'dvar Hashem Shamayim Nasu that was revealed down here brings about a tviyah, a demand to be a Yorei es Dvar Hashem. And that's why, because of this tviyah, those that didn't do the Va'ato ho'ez shlach es miknecho, those that didn't do the Heinis es avodav es mikneu al abatim, so they became now included in the Oynish. In any case, the message is obvious that anything that we experience, is for a purpose and for a cause, and we're supposed to learn from it, and we're supposed to become better people. I wish you all a good Shabbos. Rabbi Say, Chizku v'yamitz levavchem.